I believe that's a warm welcome to a couple of very enthusiastic people from outside the coalition, and then lots of coalition people, beautifully branded. Thank you for all of that. Okay, then we'll just say this is a team meeting effectively, because you're friends and coalition members, and we've got a lot of our coalition colleagues here. We just wanted to have a conversation. It doesn't have to go on for an hour, but the declaration is really, really important to us because, you know, sometimes you get accused of, when you run these sorts of events, it's just a talk shop, what's going to come out of it, you know, what's useful, and a sense of galvanizing a statement that captures the moment and captures the sentiment of our discussions and makes clear what we have concluded for all of those people that didn't attend, but also for our in our influence networks. This is a significant thing that we've been doing over the years, and sometimes when you look back, the declarations are things that first remind you and spark you of where you were at in that moment of history and what you were asking for. So the declaration is our ambition, that it runs across the event, and that it evolves from a zero draft that we prepared from consultation with other coalition members in advance, but it evolves with the input of the conversation. So we're asking two questions today, really. The first is, where is the declaration up to? What's it going to do? What happens? How does it improve based on the conversations we've had? So Chris is going to show us that. And then the second question we're going to ask is, so what do we do with it? It's no good just having a piece of paper. What are we going to do with it? So there are two questions, and please, all of us, we're going to have a think about that in a collaborative way. But first of all, if that's okay with you all, we will launch into that. But Chris is going to show us what the declaration looked like, where it's going, what is captured so far. He's been working tremendously hard on behalf of the team to capture all the Jamboards and the conversations and summaries. So, Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Oliver. So yeah, Sandra and Gandhi, we've not met. I'm Chris Hopkins. I'm Policy Manager with the Green Economy Coalition. So trying to knit together all the different policy themes. Maybe you heard me spoke a little bit about green structure reform on Monday. But yeah, the other thing I've been doing this week is working on the declaration. So I'm going to share this, and I'm going to look for some nods and tell me if you can't see what you should be seeing. Go. Can everyone see that? I'm looking for some nods. Great, perfect. So this was our intention, our Green Recovery Declaration. We started with a zero draft. We didn't want to have a blank piece of paper. And we were coming in with an idea of a vision, prosperity for all within 1 planet limits, our mission as a coalition for economic reform within a generation, and our message framing our week, a global green recovery from COVID now. But what does that mean? What does it look like? And we've been having feedback in across the week. There was a Jamboard where members could post their input. And then we were also harvesting, as Oliver was saying, all the conversations, all the different Jamboards, all the discussions over the days. We started with Code Red. We moved on to inequality. We spoke about nature yesterday. And then today we had green recovery on trial. So we've hit those 4 marks. And then tomorrow we're going to be together as a coalition, as members kind of thinking about our strategy and going forward. So this is where we started. And there'll be parts of this that maybe won't sit right with people, but hopefully the overall shape of it feels right. And there were 3 main beats to it, which is, well, the start, which is the most important bit. We, the undersigned, call for a green, prosperous, safe recovery from COVID, where no one is left behind. And we declare that this will not be achieved without cross-cutting structural reform of our economies, so they're nature positive, net zero, fair for all, and more inclusive. That's fundamentally what we're trying to communicate. And then we have 3 beats: why it's urgent, why we declare this now, what we can do together as a civil society movement, what we commit to do together, and what we demand from governments. So those are the bits that we've been attempting to build out over the course of the week. Oh, we've got Nicole joining. Hopefully she'll be able to come in. I'm going to admit her. Great. So one of the elements of this is a picture, a menu of what green structural reform looks like.
Chris, let's just pause for a second, just because it's such a small meeting. I think it's just nice to
do a welcome, shall we?
Welcome people in. So Nicole, thank you for being with us. Lovely to see you join us. And I don't know Zigbenyu Kozak. So do you want to say, Nicole, do you want to just say hi? And if you want, or we'll carry
that's
on.
fine. Hi, sorry, I'm a little late.
Thank you for
Hi,
that.
everybody.
Nicole, this declaration thing started with you in Trinidad. And
I remember all of us saying, why would we do a declaration? And I kind of chuckled. I said, it's cool now, though. Let's do it. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, we've definitely feel the responsibility to pass that on. So, thank you for being with us. I know you've put in a lot of effort to be with us all week. I appreciate it. Let's. Oh no, the other person has actually left, because as soon as I was about to invite them to just say hello, they decided to run for the hills. Okay, Chris, sorry to interrupt you. On you go.
No problem, Oliver. I'll try not to take too much more time. So for Nicole, for your benefit while I get this going, we were just giving a bit of an overview of what we were doing with the declaration, where we started. Hopefully you can see this. This was our zero draft, thinking about the urgency of why we needed to have a green recovery, what we could do together as a civil society, and then what we were demanding of governments. But maybe not just governments, maybe it's businesses as well, maybe it's a broader set of actors. And behind all of this, or where we were starting as a secretariat at least, was we've just done a decent amount of work on what a green structural recovery might look like, and drawing on this menu a little bit of some of the different policies that are out there. It's not exhaustive. There's parts missing from this. There needs to be more gender, more nature, more SMEs, not least. But it's a start, and it's what we're building from. So this is where we've started as a coalition before we then have these conversations this week. And then I'm not going to go into the details of each of these, but this is my attempt, and you can see it in the presentation, which this is available for you guys to view, attempting to pick up the key points under urgency, under action, under demands from each of the days, and then picking out the specific clauses, the specific text that we can try and reinsert into that declaration. So this was day one. Day two got very busy because Stuart has done a really excellent job of pulling together that conversation. Lots and lots of discussion around inequality and inclusion and some of the methods. The same for nature. It got a bit technical around finance, but there's lots and lots of urgency around nature and things that we can integrate. And then today, just now, we had a really, really strong rich session. I'm sure you'll all agree if you were able to join us. Lots of really great slogans, data points, insights from our witnesses and also from our jurors. So I've spent 45 minutes now trying to wrap this all together. So this is an updated version of that draft. You notice the text is a little bit smaller, but otherwise it would not fit on the page. Pulling in some of that language into these different places. So maybe before I go into this, I'll stop momentarily for, I guess, reflection on the overall piece, where it started, and then we can maybe go into some of these changes and adjustments and new aspects that we want to emphasize after this week together. How does that sound, Oliver?
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, a lot of this is going to be new to people. So, Chris, you might need to continue to share that screen, to be honest.
Sure, I'll bring it back.
Yeah, look, although it's late in the week and we've had a busy, difficult week, this is an important piece of output. So maybe we just spend a couple of minutes just checking over this and just seeing what jars or what's jarring because it's missing. Then maybe I don't want to get too hung up on the wordsmithing, but jarring for missing, jarring for other reasons, and see if anything pops in. So maybe just 3 or 4 minutes of, I don't know how people can speed read. I'll shut up.
Maybe we can start with Nicole or Sandra, but if anyone from the GEC team wants to come in, I guess you can kick us off, give us some energy.
I'll take that baton, if I may. Firstly, great job, Chris. This is not an easy task, synthesizing a whole week's worth of discussion onto one page, and also making it feel collaborative and making it feel like something that's not just come out of the GEC, but it's come out of all of the attendees. So I think you've done a great job. The one thing that I thought was missing that I would like to see in there was youth. I know we've just come from the trial where our young people were super exciting and super switched on. I think it would be great to have an explicit commitment to the role of youth as new leaders, as sort of social drivers, as the role that they're playing in leading social movements to demand this stuff. As Sandra said, you were with the Parents for Future network, I believe you mentioned. So yeah, something about youth in there, supporting youth, finding that balance between, as Oliver is sensitive to, supporting without directing, that kind of balance between allowing youth to set their own direction, but giving ourselves a role to support there as well. But other than that, I think it's great. And I think it's really evolved, especially since the first draft that I saw. Really great work.
Yeah, just to briefly respond to that, Ben, you're exactly right. Because we framed today as a youth on trial kind of thing, we took youth for granted. We never actually reasserted that point. So yeah, we absolutely need to bring that in. One of the things I heard today that did get brought in is this bit here at the bottom left. I don't know if you can see. Our hope is with people, not with leaders.
Yes.
The people who are not in charge of doing what they can, leaders are not. And that's why we conclude citizen action is key to accelerate and deepen the transition.
Of course, I was wondering whether a good place to do that is where you say I think it's the fifth bullet, we need a whole of society approach. You could say something, because I think there's apart from youth, also coming out strongly on Tuesday was women. So it's almost as if to say society, people are a resource. All of us are a resource. And so when you talk about a whole society approach, I think being explicit there about women, youth, marginalized communities, without creating this huge long list, which then becomes very boring and PC. I think we need to talk about strength is in all of us, not some of us. Okay, Sandra, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I actually, thanks for bringing this up. And I think kind of like, like an inclusive approach, the European MP here from Bonn, she started actually at the European Parliament, kind of like a campaign, half of it, that the green recovery funding from the EU, from the EU Green Deal, actually that there's gender budgeting for it, because these are sectors, energy, transportation, digital economy that are already dominated by men, and that women have disproportionately suffered, taking more care work, they cut down on their jobs, they provided the essential work, yet in this recovery funding, there's not much in for women so far. So this is a good point. And when we talk about diversity, I also, people with migration backgrounds, young people, and so forth. So like we can maybe say diversity. Now I'm also the Parents for Future representative currently. In Germany, there's a roundtable, renewable energies. It's a lot, decentralized, citizen energy, community energy approach, and the goal is to go 100% renewable by 2030 in Germany. What they really want to insist, because there's, especially from France right now, to declare nuclear energy as green, so that we kind of like exclude. If that is possible, or say this is not a safe green technology.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much.
With all the, the waste, nuclear waste, and the implication, it has for the environment, but maybe they would like to explicitly say this is the false solution.
So we need to be a bit more explicit on the sectoral solutions.
You can pick that
Najma,
up in the demand. Oliver, sorry.
Najma?
Thanks, Oliver. I think three things that I heard over the course of the 4 days. So one, and I'm not sure, Chris, if it should be added to the demand section, but I heard a lot of use of the word institutions. So I'm not sure if it's enact the policies and institutions that are needed for a green inclusive recovery. So that was an angle that was particularly very strong message on the Nature Day. I think the one other one that I'm missing is, I think we've got to perhaps try to push back at the idea that influential actors are only the types of bodies like the TNFD. I think for me, I'd like to put in there the sort of social movements. The champions of inequality. I think they are incredibly influential. So I'd like to see a stronger mention of our engagement with social movements. And then I'm not sure if we want to put it in our demand section, but I felt that we've discussed, particularly on day 2, quite a lot. And this is one of our assets, one of our strengths as a coalition is the fact that we champion inclusive, innovative mechanisms for citizen participation. And I think we need to include that, either strengthen that in our demands. I just wouldn't want to miss it. We did quite a lot of thinking and work on citizen participation. Not sure the way it would fit in.
Thanks, Najma.
Okay.
I tried to pick that up just before you come in, over. I tried to pick that up a little bit in some of the bullet points further up. But do we want to do a welcome? I saw we had someone else maybe dropping in.
Yeah, let's go to Michael. It's such a small group that we're just hoping that Michael Drinkwater, welcome. If you could just say hi and who you are and where you're from, and we could.
Yes. Hi, and hi, Najma.
Hi, Michael.
Lovely to see you, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us. You remember
Yes,
Michael?
I'm sorry that I've missed most of this week. Very frustratingly, I've been tied up to about 2:30 every single day, so I've missed the workshop sessions. But I hope to catch a little bit of tomorrow's.
Thank you.
So I'm working now with an organisation called Global Insight, and I was working last year with Stuart and Najma. And for Global Insight, I'm the principal investigator. It's a research consultancy based in the US, and I'm the principal investigator for poverty and inequality, and with a major focus on human security issues and green economy transition issues. So
Well, thank you, Michael. You're very welcome. What we're doing is we're looking through the declaration, which is the sort of consolidation of the statements that have been made over the week into a statement on behalf of the meeting. So it may be difficult for you to summarize what you've heard over the week, but
it's a good opportunity for me to catch up on what others are saying that they've heard over the week. So that's interesting for me. Thank you.
It's a good synthesis moment for you to drop in, Michael. And what I should have done is already put in the chat for everyone. You can obviously go and view this presentation yourself. Unfortunately, it can't be edited because otherwise it would have been absolute chaos over the week. But I'll be also sharing it and I can edit. But you can all go and look.
Chris, so can you put it back up, Chris? Because I think it is quite useful to dropping it. So I'd quite like to. I don't see any hands yet. So in the absence, I'd like.
Sandra has a hand up, so you know.
No, Sandra's hand up was from last time.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chris. You rely on me to facilitate. It's all right. Yeah. Okay. So, Chris, just on a couple of things. One is I do think that our statement of why can be improved. There were some wonderful stats in today. That I love the stat about 800 million lost of women's livelihoods. Things like some of the key stats from today. I think they were really, really strong. Maybe they're
That was 800 billion, which is even more shocking.
Yeah, even more shocking. Thank you for my zeros. I also wonder whether or not we might even call the whole declaration the GC meeting gives leaders a D. That might be in the press release, so I'll probably turn that to Emily. But it was the statement of the day, wasn't it? I mean, it was the takeaway of the day. It's a D. It's a D for leaders, or it's a D for recovery. It's a D for recovery, so effective recovery so far. And to go from a D to an A, we would expect this sort of thing. So some reflection on that. would seem maybe that's a press release piece, but yeah. And then I do think that we've got to build in a little bit more of your structural stuff and some of the stuff that came out, building, investing nature, reshaping finance, ending fossil fuels, and building a new social contract. Those comments I've written down on my board, so I don't forget.
Yeah.
them.
So I'm going to come to it. We'll come to Emily in next. But so what Oliver's talking about here is this structural menu, and then this, which was presented on Monday, a kind of a short list.
I think I had another point, but I've forgotten it. So we'll probably just keep going. Emily, you want to come in next?
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I'm sorry, I have to leave in 5 minutes. So I just had, I think, 2 comments. Firstly, congratulations, Chris. Yeah, pulling all of this together is unbelievably tricky in such a short time. Well done. And I think it's got the bare bones of what we need. I guess just the first point is, our tendency is to want to pack in everything that we feel about economic reform into one document, because this is what we feel. And I would encourage us to think about the sort of very precise nature of this time in history, and what we're therefore recovering from and towards. And so instead of it being a generic sort of, pitch for an economic transition sort of loosely, I think, if we were to hone it into the next 12 to 18 months, for example, it gives it, well, what are the short term, priorities? What are the medium term priorities? What are the longer term? And just to give it a sense of the why this, why now, right? So that would be my first point. And at the moment, I feel that it's there in some of the language, but then we sort of drift into the bigger why or the bigger what everyone should do, just because government should do everything. And so that's the first point. And then my second point is and this absolutely came in from Gillian Najma, I think your contact, who packs a punch. And she she was very, she said, why does the GEC always look to governments? Why does it start everything with a we're grading governments? Why don't you start from what are we grading people? And and then the governments come at the last moment. Do you know? And it's kind of an interesting sort of thought exercise that, and obviously I explained that our theory of change is based on that figure of 8 of action at the top and action at the bottom. But I wonder whether we should be sort of focusing our efforts on the support, empowerment, sort of freedom to act of those where we think change is really beginning to happen, instead of just grading governments. I don't know. There's something in there, and I haven't quite got it. But if our conclusion is, as it was today, that where most people have faith is in people, then what does it take for governments to unleash the power and the resourcefulness and the innovation of communities and people, rather than just going after what the governments are not doing and need to do? It may just be a slight tweak in framing, but it just gave me pause for thought.
Okay, it would be a better framed document if we said people are giving us hope, leaders need to step up, something more balanced. Okay, Nicole.
We do have that, Oliver.
Yeah, we do. I saw you had that down the bottom. It may well go up to the top.
Yeah.
Nicole.
This is so interesting. Yeah, and congrats to Chris. This is just a crazy effort. Building on other people, I think Oliver's why we make this urgent declaration. I am not as much of a fan as the heavy emphasis on COP26. I think our why, we have stats on where the recovery is so far, and it's broader dimensions of where we're feeling. But then the second part of the why, and it's kind of, I think, mixed up a little bit, is the underlying drivers. So the inadequate political commitment, the broken social contract, you know, whatever else you want to put there. But it's two things. It's the why is what we're seeing that's failing, and then the underlying. So I think maybe it could just be tightened up. I think the ideas are there. The second thing is the paragraph just below. We recognize that governments, business, investors. I'm looking at what's in bold. What's in bold is governments, business, investors. And I think we could bold citizens, and we can bold civil society, because a lot of this then talks about the power of civil society. So just in terms of what's jumping out, let's pick up the different actors possibly. Next comment, deep in there, you have the social contract is broken. We must repair it. I actually think it's stronger, and we must not repair and go back to what it was. We must rethink. I don't know of too many examples where the social contract was working well. So I think we need to, be stronger there. On the kind of building on Emily's point, who are we targeting on the right-hand side? So the ask, the target audience for the ask is together. So target audience is whoever signs it. You know, this is what we are committing to do. And then the second target is governments. And I mean, I kind of think governments is a strong target, and we shouldn't dilute too much. Recognizing Emily's point, if we want to target behavior change in people, is it through a declaration, or is it that together we will support, enable, amplify change being made by people? So does the people fold into together as a movement? But I'll caution and say, when I saw together as a civil society movement, I think we need to be careful, because many of GC members would not self-identify or be identified as civil society. So I don't know if we need to together as a movement, and therefore keep that a little more inclusive to non-civil society actors. Something to think about. Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks, Nicole. Really well made.
Lovely. Okay. I mean, okay, so everybody's had a go. We always have another go. Michael, you've got entirely fresh eyes, so you're very welcome to share with us your fresh perspective of this emerging statement.
I have. Well, I do have a couple of comments, and I was trying to read through that. The slides. So thanks for sending them through, Chris. I've read some skepticism about how much the COVID-19 economic recovery can be green. There was, I think I read it in reference to maybe somewhere like Scotland or so on. But I think that's a point that needs to be made as much as possible, is that how much a green economic recovery is viable, as opposed to a business's normal recovery. Because I think there's plenty of people that have yet to be convinced on that one. The second, really interested in the inequality issues, because for me that's really what any kind of economic recovery really has to address, which is the effects of globalization gone totally wrong. And I'm not sure, and I was reading your summary for the Inequality Day, and I'm not sure that enough has been said about the influence of the private sector on governance, and how that is leading to increasing corruption, and also sidetracking of hijacking of economies. We have all the big technology companies, but also the fuel. Still, more subsidies are going to fossil fuel than they are to clean energy. and there's a strong emphasis on more decentralization and citizen power and so on. But that, for me, is sort of power at the margins. It's not where the big power games are being played at the moment, which is between these powerful business actors and governments, and the extent to which we have seen increased corruption through this pandemic, including in this country, as partly as a result of that alliance as well. And the inequality agenda it's not just being able to talk to power, we have to be able to reverse some of this power.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And Nicole, I'm not sure if that was hand up from last time or is coming in again.
Coming in again, but Stuart is before me.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Stuart.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so just to pick up on Michael's point there was, Chris, in the Inequality Day, there was a number of strong statements made about transparency and holding power to account, and particularly in relationship to big business. I don't know if you feel whether the emphasis on that would be enough to bring in terms of, it's not just the softness of people, Michael, in terms of peripheral organization, but it was also, I think what came through was the idea of strong social movement, insisting on transparency, insisting on accountability, and specifically holding companies to account. So, Chris, there is some stuff in there.
Thank you. And that statement came in over and over again. Kumi's statement of how many fossil fuel companies were lobbying bigger delegation than any government.
Yes, exactly.
Nicole, over to you.
Yes, super quick addition to build on Michael and what Stuart said, which is what I was going to say. I think reference the transparency and accountability and access. Sometimes I say access to information. I don't know if it's the same as transparency, but the issue is a lot of information is just not accessible to normal human beings. It's hidden, it's confusing and so on. So if we really want transparency, it has to kind of be nuanced, but that might not be something could be fit here. And I think this third idea of access to justice is important. So, and it's linked to the accountability. So yes, when decisions are made by these powerful players, can people hold them to account? And we talked about even litigation in that Inequality Day. Thanks.
Thank you. Ben, you want to come in?
I wonder, well, maybe I should save my point for later because it's less of a content question. Maybe we want to continue talking about content. I had a sort of process question around what kind of mandate we can honestly say that we have from the event to take this declaration forward. Are we going to encourage organizations and individuals to put their name to this, to sign up to it? Or can we say, because we flagged this declaration at every event, therefore this declaration is in some sense the outcome of the meeting and therefore implicitly participants signed up to it? You see how my question is basically about how we frame this declaration going forward. Is it like this was the outcome of the event? How do we justify that? How do we say that we actually have legitimacy from the attendees that they have agreed and signed up to it?
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's a perfect segue and a nice reminder of the timing for this meeting, Ben. So I think we can probably close down on the content one now, recognizing that it's going to stay open for a while. But the second question we were going to do is, what do we do with this? Where do we take it? And so, yeah, your question about what mandate do we have? What do we use it with? Who's signing up? Just as a point of a point on generally on sign off in GEC, we always offer statements like this for branding and organizations, but we also recognize that the terms of reference for setting up the coalition was that there would be a highest common denominator rather than the lowest common denominator. And what I meant by that is that if generally things are created, then we as a GEC brand can on consultation, but we don't have to have everyone signed up. is in effect. People can extract themselves from it. And the idea that people were joining the GEC for sometimes the GEC to be able to go further than some of the constraints of their own organizations. So that was what we meant by highest common denominator. And so in essence, even if we don't offer it up, or even if we don't get hundreds of organizations signed up, the GEC statement from the coalition meeting is our default position. But let's see if we can go further than that, because it is always helpful to have a collaborative response, and for this to represent a few more organizations and to be used in other people's communications and outreach from the event. Chris, do you want to come in first, and then Sandra?
I'll come in briefly, so we go to Sandra. But I would just, for where this declaration goes, I would bring us back to Emily's point that we need to be quite concise and clear on what the purpose is, so people feel that they can actually sign up to it. So we're throwing a lot at it right now. Obviously, this isn't going to be the final version because it'll be too messy. We're going to have to reduce it again and cut the fat a little bit. But I think the clearer and more direct we can be, and the tighter we can be, the more likely people are going to sign up for it. So that'd be where I'd be.
Okay, Sandra, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, during the COPE and ahead of the COPE, a lot of calls and my question is, I mean, it's, coming from a communications point of view, there's no momentum from the COPE. So that would maybe make sense to publicize and distribute this now in December. There's also the 6th anniversary of the Paris Agreement coming up. Or is this more approach to gather more people behind it and then maybe wait and then come out? And I mean, there's a little bit timing issue. And then also, who do you want to sign in? Is this just organizations, civil society movement, or also corporations, for example, Patagonia? I mean, some corporations could maybe sign in, or there's also the EU Tech Chamber of Commerce. They really are now going, for climate action and doing a summit. I mean, it's just like more like a question. I mean, timing wise, and also what's your target group to sign in? Okay,
so just timing wise, we're having a meeting, and what are we concluding on that meeting is so we want to get it as soon as possible. There've been plenty of other moments to take it forward, but I think that people join these meetings and expect us to prepare something as a response to that meeting. So timing would be now, and there will be other moments where we can say other things. As far as other people signing up, our default is this is a coalition meeting. We have made it an open meeting for the first time, and because it's online. But again, it would be a coalition statement. But inviting others to outside the coalition to sign it, that's a decision and discussion that we might need to have with the coalition tomorrow, or even, I don't know if we could have a quorum of decision making on that today.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because you when you talk, to bring in other movements, and actors, but this is sometimes kind of like a process because it has to go through their.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, I understand.
I cannot do this from one day.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. And sign-up processes can take a very, very long time. Najwa, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just I feel that we're sort of moving from the content to the big picture and the feel of the declaration. For me, what I was really left with after our session today and where we started was, for me, the tone of day 1 and day 4 really connected very well, because we started with a sense of urgency on day 1. We took the sort of code red message from the climate community and I think expressed very strongly that this is code red for nature, people, climate. We're facing multiple interconnected crises. And then just listening to the articulateness of the young people who spoke today, and the sense of urgency and the sense of hope that we got from them, and the sense of needing to act. So I do think that we just got to keep that tone very strongly, because I do think for me that was a key feature of this meeting, that it is a moment of crisis, urgency, and action.
Thank you. I just want to reflect a little bit. There is always a tendency for us as a community to spend an awful lot of time on assuming we have some legal influence and almost creating a legal document. What I particularly liked, Nicole, when we did this with you, was that it was a bunch of talking heads across the coalition. It kind of served the purpose, which is a shared statement. And my goodness, if you just get people to read out one line, then they're comfortable with, then and you make a pastiche, then sometimes you shortcut, the challenges of organizational sign-off. And so I don't wish to diminish the process, but I also put this into perspective here. We're a bunch of people who are making a statement, and it would be nice if that statement wasn't just a flat document, but actually a video of talking heads across some wonderful people. And we could send this document round after the meeting, and we could say, and if you're happy with it, we'd like you to record 2 lines of it. Sorry, Emily, you probably pulling your hair out because you need to go for Christmas, but that's a nice little project for Tom. We could do something like that. Anyway, just a thought that this is not a legally binding document. This is not something that, it's going to... Anyway, enough from me on that. Nicole, you want to come in?
I think to build on that, I agree with the points made. I think Ben saying, what's here came out of the meeting, and that's the validity. And can it be a declaration by the Green Economy Coalition coming out of our annual meeting? So not asking anybody to sign on, but kind of given that this is justified by the discussions at the meeting, and you can do tons of research to show that. And then how is this used as a second phase? And if in the declaration, it's all about together, we as a movement will engage with others and so on. Almost the declaration can be that tool moving forward to engage members and others in saying, okay, now let's do, let's do. And for example, what we did in the little Trinidad one, we put it up on our wall and people would come into our office and start to sign the thing, So it just is an inspiration piece. It's a kind of rallying call. And I don't think we need a bunch of people signing it to give it validity now. And it more could be that inspiration to get people signed on to the movement.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. Agreed.
I was just like thinking, of course, this is a Green Economy Coalition declaration. This is signed by the members, and then just like an invitation to other groups
join us
to join.
Yeah.
And that can be done with its signature, or I don't know. Like tech people that can figure this out. And one of these things, it's is this going to be available in other languages? Okay,
it's a good question, Sandra.
I think this is also for to being inclusive, and you were active in so many languages. I think not everybody speaks English.
So should we, Ben, should we look at languages, and should we also look at this idea of posting it and signing up, which might, when we say join us, maybe if people sign up to it, they might immediately feed into the process of joining the coalition. Anyway, that's a bit, maybe that's going too far. But
no, absolutely. I think what we've done in the past with documents like this is that we've translated it into each of the main languages of our dialogue partners. So that would be French, Mongolian, Spanish. Gosh, I'm probably missing some. Yeah, and then in terms of having it as a sign up, then yeah, absolutely. We did that with the Santa Cruz Declaration. We had an online sign-up process, and we also did it with the Delhi Declaration. We had an online sign-up process where people could put their names and their organizations, yeah, so there's just like a page on our website where you can stick all that information in, and then it's you have officially signed the declaration. So we could run that whole process again.
Yeah, I just think that sometimes that felt like it was going nowhere. So that sign-up process. So maybe the sign-up process is actually sign up. When we say join us, we actually mean join us, genuinely join us. And so if you're signing up to this, you're signing up to join the coalition, or you're putting your application in. Just something a little bit more explicit on join us rather than just sign something. And maybe that would mean that it didn't sort of, anyway, it's a thought. Look, why don't we take that away? But definitely the languages, Sandra, very good points. Definitely, I agree with Nicole. We can't wait forever to, the mandate was the meeting. The mandate is the coalition. The statement is the coalition. And I do think that, building on the good experiences of the Santa Cruz Declaration, it's much nicer if it's not just a flat document, but it is a talking head. So I think if we take those actions, then we're good to go on this. Should we try and have any final comments, and then we can go and get a coffee before probably your next Zoom call in 10 minutes time, or whatever else you're trying to do with the day? I know we're always back to back, aren't we, on these things? Is there any sort of final comments? Or you don't have to make them if you don't wish to. I'm just looking around the room for anybody. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. And we've done, and actually just a big thanks to Chris, because genuinely, sitting there capturing all of that, and everybody Jamboards. Thank you, Chris. Great work, and Nicole, thank you for turning up. I'm sure that you're probably sick of the GC by now, but you've been super for turning up, and also Yandy and Michael, lovely to meet you. Thank you for joining in. Let's go and have a coffee before the next meeting, and thanks everyone. Cheers. See you tomorrow.